1-11. Periodization of ancient Bulgarian history. Genealogy of rulers and rulers' dynasties. According to the historical corpus, Nariman Tariki, 1, compiled by Daesh Karajay al-Bulgari in 1391, NT, Volume 2, pages 57 to 128, Bulgarian epic poets and chroniclers mainly used 4 jalons for the periodization of ancient Bulgarian history, in the beginning of which there were undoubtedly legendary and fairy tale epic moments. But this, as is well known, is a ubiquitous world tradition. Yolai Gabaz, Abkhaz, who lived in the 2nd to 1st centuries BCE, delineates the earliest period with the year of the coming of the Suba tribe, horde of Lokbear from Akbash, Asia, to Balma, Eastern Europe and the Balkans, which occurred 31,500 years before the Burmese era, or this is the beginning of the Age of Lokbear, 32,153 BC. The next period begins with the Year of Jam, or Year of Bulgar or Bulgar, 14953 BC, followed by the Year of Turjan or Kart Turjan, Old Turjan, 1699 BC, and finally the Year of the Burmese War, 653 BC, which began the Burmese era. As Nariman himself writes, from the Year of the Burmese War to the year of the birth of Hasai Pajimber, Jesus Christ, is 653 years. From the Burmese year to the year of Kar-Turjan is 1,046 years, and from the Burmese year to the year of Lokbear is 31,500 years. He also uses the Year of Kichi-Turjan and June or Han-Ella, the year of the Hun/Hun/ when the Second Hun dynasty began, 363. The period between the years of Lokbar and Berdas is called the Ancient Age. The period from Berdas to the Huns is the Middle Age, and the period beginning with the year of the Huns is the New Age. In the New Age, 2 more important periods emerge. The first destruction of Bulard, 1236, and the second destruction of Bulard, 1278. 1-11-1. List of the Bulgarian kings of the Imen dynasty. When F. Nuretinov published the list of the Bulgarian kings of all dynasties in the collection Jagvartaria, he explained that he had compiled it on the basis of the data from Kolgali and Ghazi Baba before his notes were stolen in 1982. The main source for Ghazi Baba were the documents from the Ilchi Yurchui of the Kings, the diplomatic office, and for Kolgali, the book of Gabdullah ibn Bashtu, Hazar Tarihi. Kolgali cites Gabdullah's data because he considered them the most complete of all existing ones, even though they contradict in a number of cases with other lists of Bulgarian kings. Jamidzik 14953-14653 BC. 1 was the first Bulgarian king of Idel from the Imen dynasty. In his honor, all representatives of the Imen and Sarmatian dynasties were called Ijabak, ruler of the Idzik family. For the common people, the word Ijabak came to mean king, lord, Pokiliatel, and for the noble people it meant majesty. Later, the word Jabgu was added to the title of king, which replaced Ijabak. Jam's wife was named Tambit, but some sources claim that she and Urgi Chokchak were the same person. 7 tribes entered Jam's state, some of whom constituted the Bulgarians' dominant nation. Because of this, the state of Jam received the name Idel. 7 tribes L. The following rulers of Idel, who have remained in the tribal memory, are Al or Baal, 14th millennium BC. The word El, Baal, meant head, chief, sacred, lord. Khan, 13th millennium BC. During his reign, some of the Idolites migrated to the east. Ith, 12th millennium BC. Named the Ural Mountains, Balkan, in honor of his ancestors. Kar, 11th millennium BC. In his time, the tribes of the Karites, Finns, settled in Idel. The land he set aside for them to live on they began to call Kuril, land El of the Karaiti, Uliat or Lug, 10th millennium BC. They called it that because a plague was raging at the time Edel was born. He expelled from Idel some of the Bulgarians, led by the tribe of Deber-Seber. A part of the exiles settled in Karasaklan, Ukraine, another part in Mykean, China, and Makedon, Balkans, Macedonia, a third in Sivar, Mesopotamia, where they founded the state of Samar, Sumer. Very soon Samar, Sumer, was joined by Midian, Iran, Anglo-Samar, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Mekan, Mshina, Kresh, Crete, Kubar, Cyprus, Mammal, Egypt, Atriac, Asia Minor, Troy, Karkash or Kafkaz, Caucasus. The sign of Tengra and light with them was called Cossack trident. The weapon of their two chief Alps Nardigan, Kargamardikan, Sabin, Samar, Simbur, and Kubar Bazadin, the owner of the depths, the world ocean, too also had the appearance of a trident, but was called Sanak Kopi, Bila. The old Bulgarian Kamboyans, shamans, called the Cossack Sanak. The main Alps were called Ake Aga, Subash, Baraj, meaning grace, bearing grace. After the flood, in which the Bulgarian dynasty and the army of Samar perished, this state broke up into Mammal, Kresh III, Midian and Sivar, Mesopotamia, in which the power was taken by the former slaves Karabi, Arabs. The word Harab in English meant Kara Aba, black clan. But in most cases the Bulgarians called the Arabs Sarkans, and Sarkin meant Barhan, desert dweller. Kresh was the large island, Crete, on which the Ganesh, council of elders, and wrestling contests were held, and from the winners of these the kings were chosen. After a time this Bulgarian kingdom also broke up, and eventually they were conquered by the Tirans, 5 who also began to call themselves by the name of Kresh, Kreshse, or Kreshianai, Cretans and hence Greeks. In the ancient Bulgarian language meant land, but later in, or, and began to mean only a suburb, a coastal territory. Onion, 9th millennium BC. The word onion was in some cases a variety of the word Uliat, Uranus, and other names of the mighty Al-Biki Turan, and in others it meant dragon, protector from trouble, great. Sakal, 8th millennium BC. Given the nickname At for his love of horses. Aka or Buga, 7th millennium BC. Under him, some of the idle Bulgars led by the Atrians reached Sivar, Mesopotamia, and the lands they later called Atriac, Turkey. He surrounded himself with the cronies of the Turkic clan aka Imen and trusted them. He sent the Imen to his main camps on the St. Idel, Oka, and the Bug, South Bug. Call, 6th millennium BC. Its name meant Sive. Balkan, 4550 to 4490 BC. It united all the tribes living on both sides of the Urals, and because of this got its name. Bish, brother of Balkan. Under him in Idel began disturbances and wars between the descendants of Balkan. Kubar, son of Balkan. He was deposed and led his tribe to the west, settling in the mountain Makedon one. Talk, son of Kubar, was deposed and had to lead his tribe out to Soar, Mesopotamia, and Atriac. Very soon he became king of the whole of Samar, ancient Sumer, founded by the Ido Bulgars. Samar then broke up into Mammal, Egypt, Sivar, Mesopotamia, Iraq, Atriac, Troy, and Makedon, Balkans, Macedonia. Ishtiak, son of Kubar. He migrated to the said Morokai, Altai, and his people called them Ishtiak Ugri. Ijim, son of Kubar, 4th Iadology BC, remained in Idel. He marched eastward and called the border river Ijim, Ishim, Air, or Ural. He reunited all the peoples of Idel on both sides of the Balkan, and these mountains came to be called the Ural in his honor. Bish, 3rd century BC. During his reign, many Bulgarians of the tribe Bilsaga, Pelasgi ND, or Bishatar, Bashtars ND, came out of Idel. One part of them settled in Karasaklan, present-day Ukraine note, another in Nikan, Mykina note, where they built the city of Bilsaga, Pylos note. A third in the Caucasus, where their neighbors called them Hudi, Hedi or Udig, a fourth in Kashan, Central Asia, where they later divided into Tagars, Sagdaks, Mosguts, and Kashans, and a fifth in Ulughin, India. The Houthis established a large kingdom that subdued almost all of Samar, except Mamel, Saklan, the daughter of Kar. During her reign, the Bulgars returned from the Seven Rivers, the Ishtiaki, led by Askell, but the queen allowed only the people of his son, Boyan, Mayan, whom she married, to settle in Idel. Then Askell's other son, Kresh, or Baluan, went far away and settled on the island of Kresh. The Makedon, Balkan, Bulgars, dissatisfied with the rule of the Atrian Bulgars, passed under his authority. After the death of old Askell, Saklan repented of his deed and built the shrine of Arabiae on the site of his grave. The word Saklan in the ancient Bulgarian language evolved into several meanings: Eurasia, Ari, Indo-Aryan, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, Sarmatians, Bulgarians. Map, 2nd century BC. Under him, some of the Idel-Oxaga Bulgarians from the Mizhen area, who were also called Agathari, Agachurj, Meshini, Kimri, boatmen, shipwrights, because of their skill in building vessels and sailing with them, migrated south. One part of the Agathar Kimri settled in Karasaklan, Ukraine, another subdued the Sibri and Bilsaga Mekan, Balkans, a third tried to re-establish the Sumerian state, but was defeated by the Mamluks. The Mekan Agathiri conquered Kresh, then Atriac, Mamel, and Angel-Samar, but after suffering great losses in the wars, were themselves defeated by the Tirans who came from Galaj. Aspar defeated the Turks. Protobrians, Doric, forced them to flee from Galaj to the Makedon Bulgars, the Agathars, who enslaved them and called them Serbians. But when the Agathars lost strength in the wars, this enslaved tribe called out from Galaj their countrymen, and with them conquered Mykina. After the death of Aspar, Idel began to lose its power, and the Agathars of Karasaklan ceased to obey the kings of Idel. Because of this, the Idelish Bulgars began to call them not Sumerians, but Kamri. Buran. During his reign, some of the Idel Bulgars again went to the Seven Rivers and Kashan, Central Asia, where they settled around the Kashan, Aral Sea, and Lake Sabin, Balhash. Its name meant Sive. Tirans defeated them. The Trojan War note of the author. When the wooded part of Idel was separated from the steppe, he received the nickname Balta Topper One. Mange. Soren. Kama or Burma, 10th century BC. Under him, internecine strife reached unprecedented proportions. Paying no heed to them, Burma began the construction of a huge sanctuary, the Alap Kappa, High Gate, in which he was buried after his death. 1-11-2. The ancient dynasties of the Western Bulgars to the nickname of Alpa Subban, Ziyaji, dragon, passed as the family name of his descendants Bulgars in the ancient age. Lokber Ziyaji had a son, Bulgar or Bulir, who helped Kartjam, Old Jam, grandson of Alpa Subban or Kalat, establish the kingdom of Idel in Balan, Eastern Europe. Next to Idel existed the Suba, dominion of Lokber, which was called Berdas, after Lokber's second name, Berdas, i.e. bear. Together, Idel and Berdas formed the empire of Amybaika, Alpbaika, mother of all Alps, patroness of women, Turun Suba, so named in honor of the Alp Baika Umai Tiruan. Tiruan Suba was created in the year 153 in the era of Lakbar, 32,000 BC, and coexisted until the year 13,153, 19,000 BC. The subordination of the individual male rulers to the female mother indicates that this was an age of matriarchy at the end of the Ice Age. Where and how they arranged their residences in those climates can only be guessed at. In the first place in the Great Caves, for example, such as Denisova. In 13153 the Albaika Umai Turuanabi fell into an eternal sleep and lost the beads of her necklaces, and the tribes under her control interpreted this sign, so that they fled around the world. Lokbar tried to recover them by force and entered the Agile Balkans, where he was unexpectedly killed by his father, the Alpha Suban Ziyaji. 1-11-2-1 The Ziyaji dynasty or Kardjam. Avarkam and his Bulgaravari, the Exatsi, Hyksos. After the emergence of the Bulgarian nation, Abi Ziyaji, or Kardjam, creator for him, the first Bulgarian state Idel in the year of Bulgar III. He ruled Idel under the patronage of Umaybi for 300 years, after which he fell asleep in eternal sleep, and the power in Idel passed to his descendants. They ruled sometimes for 1,000 years in this order. First was Abi Ziyaji IV or Kardjam al or Bal, also called Bulgar and al-Bulgar. After him were Kanit, Kar, Lut or Uliat, Bao, Sakal, Ak or Bug, Kal. Adluk, also called Lek, Lak, Leb, Lyabaliaba, the Bulgars settled the coast of the Aryan Bulgarian, Baltic, Sea and the Tiran Bulgarian, Mediterranean, Sea, for which reason they received the names Bulgarians, Libyans, Leks, Laks, Libayans, Lytotes. Bug or Ak or Ug had a son Atriac, whom they also took to call Alpalek. The Bug ruled Idel under the supervision of the Umayyad Baika 6,000 years before the Berda War. His first wife Lek, daughter of Chulman, bore him the son Atriac. Bug then married a second time to Lyamapia, and she gave birth to the son Kal or Sagal. Lyamappa hated his first wife and poisoned her. Then in her desire to give the throne to her son sooner, she slandered her husband. She lied to Umayyad that Bug was preparing to depose her. Umayyad blinded Bug and they began to call him Gur, blind man. During this time, Atriac successfully conquered Sur, Mesopotamia, and Kapdag, Asia Minor, for Umayyad. When he found out what had happened to his mother and father, whom he loved very much, Atriac called himself like Giriglai, son of the blind, and refused to obey Idel and Umayyad. The enraged Umayyad sent an army of Umayyad women, Amazons, led by Lyamapia's sister, Angiapia, against Atriac, who had fortified himself at Kapdag. But at the place which they afterwards began to call Anger, Ankara, Giriglai defeated this army, and Angiapia and some of the Umayyad women he captured and sold to the Arjabalish Argos. When the Arjabalics took the captive women by ship to Arjabalish, southern Garwan, IA, they succeeded in capturing several ships and escaping to the mouth of the river Muselgi or Myelgi, Meos. Thus Atriac, who possessed superhuman strength, like an Alp, became world famous under the name of Lek, Lektu, Lekton, and most of all as Giriglai won his personal fief of Kapdag received its former name of Atriac, to distinguish it from the much later living emperor of Islet Atriac Ukarjak. Giriglai the Alp Lek took to calling Karth Atriac, Old Atriac, and Karth Giriglai, Old Giriglai. The Erdiberians, ancient Georgians, who considered Kart Atriac their ancestor, called him simply Kart and liked to call their land Kardile, the land of Kart. After Kal, power in Idel passed into the hands of Kardjam's brother, Sir Sarmati. In honor of Sarmati, the Eastern Bulgarians called themselves Sarmatians, Sarmatians. According to legend, Sarmati once fell asleep before Kartjam and woke up before him. While the brothers slept, Sarmati married his wife. When he woke up, Kartjam challenged his brother to a duel, but then the two agreed that the woman would stay with the one of them who showed more courage in the march against the Kalgenesis and Pure Ones. Only Sarmati returned from the campaign, and an unconfirmed rumor spread that he had killed his brother. Kartjam's son, Jamijik Auden, believed this rumor and demanded that Turunabi Surid be tried. But when he was refused, he and his people migrated to Sanjak, pre-Caucasus. Up to this time, he had been a Tujuan, viceroy, of Idel on the island of Chulman, Scandinavia, and in Rugen. On the island of Chulman, the loving Alp Arbi gave him a large area to live in, the future Sodom. There Jamijik Auden lived for a time peacefully with his people, who were called Kutsi too. The word Kud meant man among the Bulgarians and Bulgarian among the non-Bulgarians. After Turunabi learned of Jamijik's residence on the island, she ordered the Alpa Chulman to send the huts to Karasur, between the Oder and Vistula rivers. From here, Jamidzik, leaving some of his Kuds behind, moved after a while to Olag, Wallachia. After staying here for some time, Jamidzik moved to the district of Aneshdar, Dniester, where he was called Tarjais or Tarjatai, i.e., the Dniester. After his expulsion from Chulman, he was also called Uruguay, i.e., son of the otherworld or the afterworld, because the island of Chulman was believed to be the otherworld. There were not a few Hindus left in the area of Chulman Island, which was also called Jamal in honor of Jam. And in Karasur and in Olag also there remained quite a few Hindus. Where in the year 9353 of the Bular era, 5,600 years BC, founded the first oldest Bulgarian kingdom. Then some Bulgarians pronounced the word Bulgar in the very ancient forgotten form, Banjar. The remaining people of Jam and Rugen distorted the word, Kud, and took to calling themselves Kunduri, and in Sanjak or Iski Bulgar, Old Bulgar, Kanari. Jam Auden ruled Old Bulgar for 300 years, then slept for another 300 years. When he woke up, he asked the heavens to be converted into a man and soon died. In his honor, the Sanjak Heights were named the Jam Bulgarian, Stavropol Heights. And Sarmati, soon after Jam's departure from Bulgar Rugen to Sanjak, reigned in Idil for a short time and fell asleep again, or was killed in a conspiracy, as some others say. All the first rulers of Bulgar bore the title Tarjais, son of heaven, and were called Tarjais. Soon after the death of Jamijik, the king of Sanjak or Iski Bulgar became his descendant Aslan or Arslan, son of Beychug. Aslan had a brother, Kushdar, whose descendants became the Bogs, rulers of the Davars, Tabri. And all the sons of Arslan, except the youngest Kanjar, dispersed from Sanjak and went to reign in other lands. Shambat went to reign in Sivar, Sumer, Bal and Balistan, Palestine, Baelish and Agil I, the Balkan Peninsula, Burdas and Burdas, the inner fluve of the Don and the middle Volga, Agaj and Erdebalane or Karasakhlin, Western Sakhalin, Ukraine, Burjan and Siban, Central Asia. In 4300 before the year of Burdas, 4953 BC, Agaj declared his kingdom Agajir to be the empire of Great Bulgaria, but insisted that foreigners call it Tarjatai or Agajir. After some time, they began to call it a Skip star. Burjan, the son of Aslan, had sons Ilik, Burjat, Kashan, Ermias, and the celebrated daughter Sakmar. Burjan's younger wife was the Albaika Karajim. Karajim's sister, Dullo, was at first the wife of Burjat and of Kashan, and their descendants were called Dullo. Burjat and Kashan founded the kingdom of Han, or Dzungar, but it was thanks to Dullo that Burjat became the head of Dzungar. Kashan took offense, went to the Surdaria river, and founded his own kingdom of Kashan there. After the death of Burjat, Karajim married Kashan. Under Ermias, his first wife was Gulbika, who bore him 3 sons, Harbi, Shek, and Kiakmer, and the younger Oimek, sister of the Imogen, evil Al-Bika, Baimek, bore him a son Tumek. All the known mascot of RBI are descended from Akmer, who took Avar as his middle name. Bertus had sons Bishagit and Jarjabai, who married Ilik's foster daughter, Isad. Kanjar had sons Davar and Tal. Davar by his first wife had sons Kabul and the Deshira Emil, who became the wife of Kashan. All the kings with the name Kashan in the kingdom of Kashan, Kushan Empire, are descendants of Burjan's son, Kashan and Emil. A descendant of the Sumerian, King Shammat in the 63rd generation was the king of Sumer, Iraq, Mesopotamia, Sumer, Balish. He had 3 famous sons, Burash, Gunesh, and Koresh. It is known that in 2560 BC, in 3213 BC, King Balash married the Karajim, Khwarezmite, princess of the Burjat family, Bakhtikis, with great solemnity. After the death of Balay, Buray became the king of Samar, under whom a son, Rajas, and a daughter, Akadanese, were born to the daughter of the Alpaquian, Kude. Under Gunesh, who married a girl of the poor family of Ukarjak, was born the son of Jack Ukarjak, who in time received the names Tarjais, Chimer, and Gurigle, Heracles. After the death of Burash, Koresh became king of Samar. From Jam Jamal, from Tuki Tukul, from Juri Jurul, etc. From the district of Aneshdar or Tar, Jamijik Auden with a part of his people migrated to Jalda, Crimea, and thence to the town of Bulgar, founded on the river Aryan or Rujan III by the son of Karjam, Al-Bulgar, who, in honor of this river, sacred to the Bulgars, he called himself also Rujan from here Jam after some time, under the pressure of Turuanabi, again migrated with a part of his people to Sanjak, Rish, the son of Baraish, raised by the king of Sanjak, Titesh Tabal, a descendant of King Kabul, son of Davar, married Titesh's daughter Bozbika. After the death of Titesh, Tabal Rish became king of Sanjak or Ishka Bulgar, and received his triple name Rish Tabal. To Rish Tabal and Bozbika was born their son Almash. When Almash grew up, he married Megan, the foster daughter of Chulman and Akadanese. To them were born a son, Taish or Daish, and a daughter, Tanaish, who became the wife of Atrich. The flood that overwhelmed Suvar occurred in 2480 before the Burton War, i.e., 3133 BC, when Atriac was 17 years old, and he was already married. 3 years after the flood, Atriac founded the state of Ilith and built the city of Bulgar, which was also called Ilith, Alian, and Atriac, Troy. And Atriac married Tanash when he was 70 years old, i.e. around 3080 BC. Athriac died at the age of 150, i.e. in 3000 BC. The descendants of Atriac and Tanuish after 33 generations were Jargon, the Jarkubrat of Ilith, born in 1370 before the Berta War, 2023 BC. After him, his son Hection became the ruler of Eilat, and after Hection, Jargon's other son, Mogar.1 during this time, Agagir, the Bulgarian Empire centered in Ukraine, or Askip, Scythia, was ruled by the Jabgasir, Emperor, Agil, a descendant of the Jabgasir Agarja, son of Aslan. Agil had a son Burin, who succeeded him. At the same time, Abar, or Avar Rajal, the Bog of the Mosguts, arrived in Kapdag from Kurgan, Transcaspian, with some of the Mascud Bulgars of Ar, or E.G. Sazi. He was born in 1357 before the Berta War, i.e. in 2000 BC, in Gian, whence he received his name Gianez, i.e. the Gian Bulgar. When he became 20 years old, he enlisted in the service of the king of Rajal to Nabi, and for 3 years was in the service of his Rajal city of Balam or Bulam, for which he received the nickname Sagrajit, i.e. Bulgar Raji, Rajal Raji. King Nabi himself lived in the towns of Tam and Lam, Harap and Mohenjo-Dar townships. When Abar had served 3 years in Rajgil, Kuliad Bala III appeared to him and conveyed to him Tangar's instruction to become a preacher to the people. Avar began to preach to them. Because of these sermons, he was expelled from Rajgil to Kurgan, Hyrcania, Transcaspian, where he arrived with some of the Moscow Bulgarians Avari or Igisazi. The Bagat of the Moscows, Rajal Avar or Abar, also received great renown under the names of Avar Rajal, Balamat, Kamkan, Nabi, and Barjian Magat, i.e. Prophet, Bajar, Gianez, and because of his sermons, he received the nickname Avar Kamwan, i.e. Saint Avar. Avar and his people were very fond of horses, which helped them in their wanderings. When Avar's favorite horse, Balayamat or Balayingor, died, Avar named himself and his capital after him. At Kurgan, Avar Rajal received a vision, during which the laws of God and the letter, which was afterwards called the Agil letter, were communicated to him in the name of the Most High through his messenger Kuliad Bala, and it was ordered that it should be communicated to the people that God was one, and that men were bound to follow the commandments of God. Avar complied with this, and communicated to the people all that was written in the book of God's commandments, the Torah. But the majority of the Bulgarians Mascots, or Magi Bulgarians, who had been misled by his malicious uncle Alvar, did not like this, and Avar and his followers were driven north. Abarkam initially fled to Iber, Zoralai, western Siberia, and Igindan, where the Majar, Mudojari mountains are. Therefore, the Moscows of Awar began to call themselves Magyars, and they gave themselves the self-named E.G. Mascots. The Bargis, Persians, on the other hand, who called the Moscows Chaki, i.e. extreme, called the Kuk Mascots Kuk Chaki II or E.G. Sazi, mighty Bulgars, hence the Near Eastern, Hyksos, / and the Kuk Mascots were most fond of calling themselves Bulgars or Bulgans, and the rivers and mountains where they lived they always called by the name Bulgari or Bulgani, Balkans, and E. Thus, the mountains around the Ariaksu, Uzboy, river, where they used to live, they called them Bulgar or Bulgan, the modern Balkan mountains in Turkmenistan, and E. Similarly, the southern part of the Jugrai or Urai mountains, called by Ashrai by Ripe, they called them Bulgar Tash or Bulgan Tash Ural. And Sodom Abarkam fled to Idel, where he obtained the district of the then deserted town of Halja or Bulgar. The Moscows Bulgars who spoke various Bulgarian dialects called Halja Bulgar, Balch, Buldan, Rudjan, Karkon, Sagdam, and Bugar, as the Bulgardakes pronounced the word Bulgar. Most of the people of Abarkam were Dai, and Dai in their dialect means Bulgarian people. Abarkam rebuilt the town of Halja Bulgar, Bulgar on the Volga, which came to be called Abarshir or Abarshir in his honor. Under the pressure of Abarkam's uncle, Alvar, who did not give the Kukchuks a rest in Issedun either, and by the decision of the then Emperor of Great Bulgar or Astype, Scythia, Mar Agil, Kapraji, Abarkam moved from Halja Bulgar to the area of the Chul River, Suluk and Dagestan, in Sainzak, pre-Caucasus. On the way, the Goyd left some of his people in Sainzak, who were willing to enter the service of Agajar. The Agajar called them Avars, Abarkaji, Nabii and Galactubaji, Galactophagi and Herodotus, and E, because they wore tall and pointed Galactubji hats, and the Avars called the Agajar Bulgarians in Moscow Balini, and Agajar Balinger in Midjar. From here the Tuba of Rajal migrated to the Kapdag district of Jilki, located south of Balmap 4. While Lektiu, Alp, Lord of Kapdag, also called Kartatriak Gsterieta Triak, / and Kargurigal Gsteriak Gurigal, slept, Avar settled the people directly in his yurtluk, a group of yurts, a manor, a homestead, and in 1320 before the Burmese War, i.e. 1973 BC, formed here the Bailika, Principality of Sever-Mascut or Kuk-Masir. The people of Abarkam, adopting their Persian name, began here to be called Egisagd, i.e. mighty Bulgars, or Egisazi. The explanation lies in the fact that the word Sag Bulgarian was pronounced by the Dyaks both correctly and in the form Saz. Among the Bulgarians Mascuti the word Saz meant son and horses, but this did not disturb the Dai. They liked to call themselves Sunny and Horse. In the beginning in Kaptag his capital was the city of Kadish, Shivas, Turkey, but later he built for himself the city of Anjur, or Anagar, called Ashangara and Ankura, royal capital, royal rod, present-day Ankara, and his son Sibash the city of Sibash, present-day Shivas. For his son Sheila I, Suibash built north of Suibash, the city of Sheila, present-day Zile. The river flowing around Sheila was called Kuk Bulgar by the Kukchags, today's Eshermak, and the mountains between Sheila and Suibash were called Bulgartau, Bulgarian mountains. The area of the town of Sheila began to be called Maskut. The Bible calls the Maskut and Kuk-Maskut districts Gog and Magog. The local Bulgarians mutant called Euris, Mohai and Tabal, Rosh, Meshech and Tual. In the Bible, gladly welcomed the Kukchags and helped them settle. They, like the Bulgarians of Agadir, called the Avars, Abarsaji. The then Emperor of Islet I invited the Avars to his service. After some time, Abarkam, who had become famous in his sermons on monotheism, left the Beylik to one of his sons, Sibash Uruk, and with some of the Kukchafs moved to Islet to serve under Maher. Avar's son, Sibash Uruk, did not go with his Basha, and remained to rule Maskut, although he acknowledged himself as the Ak Kanesh of Islet. After Sibash Uk ruled Sheila, who assumed at the coronation the name Bekaz, i.e. the Great Bulgar. After him ruled his son Kamel, his son Hazar, his son Balta, his son Iltabay, his son Mabai Uris, his son Balanat or Chulat. Chulat, named after the last nickname of the Alpha Chulman, had 4 other brothers, Jimavar, Balaz, Baris, and Shinavar, who supported him in everything. At Chulat, the Alp Lektiu awoke, and the Avarchafs, who had occupied his yurtluk without his permission, had to flee from Maskut to Kazildur, Syria. Some of the Bulgarians, mistaking the way, fled to Islet, Subar, Mesopotamia, and Mejan, Azerbaijan. During the flight many of these Bulgarians fell captive to Lektiu, and awaited a cruel death. But suddenly the Alpha's attention was drawn to the Bulgarian horses, which he had not seen before. Lektiu ate one of them, and liked its flesh so much that he spared the captives and took them into his service as horsemen. Then, seeing that the works were being arranged with them, he allowed them to form a bailiwick of their own. The neighbors called the captives of Lektiu Bulgarians, Chaldei, for the Chaldei were the majority of them, but the captives themselves preferred to call themselves by the Bulgarian name of Keti, people. The Kates very quickly subjugated all their neighbors, but the subjugated constituted the majority in their Beylik. Influenced by the language of the subjugated, the name Keti began to be pronounced in the form Kati. Therefore, the capital of the Kati Bulgarians and their entire Beylik came to be called Kadish. Later on, they started calling the Kati themselves as Kati. The Kati did not tire of breeding beautiful horses for Lektiu and his Alps, which returned to him, and he guarded their Beylik. And the other Bulgarians who fled to Kazildur met with a cordial reception from the Yeris, for they raised them to conquer Mammal, who oppressed Jur. In 1070, before the Berta War, 1723 BC, Chulat, who had drawn up a plan with his brothers Balaz, Baris, Shinavar and Jimavar, attacked Mamel with 5 armies, each of which had 2 columns. The Mamel army, as soon as its vanguard was overrun, surrendered, and the Egisazas took possession of Mamel. This year has gone down in Bulgarian chronology as the Year of Mamel. Chulat became the king of Mamel too. The whole country was divided into 5 parts, in 4 of which Chulat's brothers became governors. To Chulat himself fell the eastern district, where he built the cities of Az, Gaza, Avar, Avaris, Sarikan, Syra, Memphis, and the new Ursabilum too, Jerusalem. All the city temples, whose comos did not accept monotheism, were closed. Cam Ispel, who was the first of the Cams to recognize the absolute truth of uniformity, monotheism, was declared the Burkam of Mamel Chulat. Ispel declared Chulat to be Barankan, 3 Emperor of Mamel, and gave him a ring with the words, "As long as he is with you, you will be in power." But once Chulat lost that ring, and immediately mutinies rose against his authority. In his desperation, Chulat decided to drown himself and approach the Tamil, Nile, river, but the Alf-Chulman himself suddenly came up from the depths of the river and told him that he would help him find the ring because of his respectful attitude towards the waters. In fact, Chulat forbade polluting the waters with impurities. Very soon Chulman found Chulat's ring in a fish and returned it to him. Peace immediately reigned in the country. And Chulat, in memory of this, took Chulman's name and gave his son Javais a second name, Tanes, one of Chulman's names. Daesh 4 writes that the Arabs living in Jur and Mamel called Avarkam the prophet Ibrahim, and Chulat 5 Chulman, Suleiman. Chulat was renowned among women as a wonderful lover, and an Arab queen once specially came to him to see this for herself. When she was convinced, she adopted the monotheism and the name Bulgas, which in Arabic meant Bulgarian. She was from the country of Ben Imen, Yemen, and this is what the Bulgarians called the date palms, and this country was subsequently ruled by this son, conceived from her encounter with Chulat. Daesh points out that the Arabs called the Bulgarians Barbari, Berbers, and then began to call those Arabs who began to breed horses by that name. Daesh stresses that the Arabs remembered the Egisaz under the name of Midger, thanks to the Jerks. The Avars called the Agager, Scythian, Eastern Europe, by the name of Midger, and to the question, "Where did you come from?" they always answered, "From Midger," i.e. from the wooded land. The Gyras still like to tell the legend of the attack of the Midger in Mamel, when the army of the Midger appeared in Mamel on thundering chariots, and with hunting bards under canopies, the cat-worshipping Mamels at once surrendered, saying, "We cannot fight those whose hunting cats are 10 times bigger than ours." After the withdrawal of the majority of the Bulgarians from Mamel, their name, Midger, forever remained for Mamel only in its Arabic form, Mizr, Mishra, Egypt. And after Chulat Chulman or Suleiman, Mamel was ruled by his son Tanesh, after him his son Azak. Azak had no children for a long time, but had a brother Manas or Karth Manas, from whom he adopted his one child named Hanik. After this, however, he had a son of his own, Jawish, to whom he wished to leave power. Hanik, being related to his foster father, took offense, and after the death of Azak succeeded in taking power. In order that his power should not be threatened by the henchmen of Javais, Hanik transferred the capital from the city of Avar to the city of Athens on the same river Tamil. And he did not change the power structure. The emperor himself and his relatives, the governors, remained as the upper stratum of the aristocracy and did not interfere in the internal life of the provinces. Chulat bequeathed all the 5 parts of the Bulgarian people to live separately from the rest of the people, but this bequest was not strictly observed, and many Bulgarians, marrying Mamluks and going to live in their settlements, became local asnas and lost their fighting capacity. After Hanik ruled his son Idzik, then his sire Jayalan or Jaibalan, whose name meant Delta. Under him, the fighting capacity of the army became so low that the Echek Tamils, Ethiopians, Sudanese, succeeded in defeating the Bulgars and attacking Mamel. Alarmed by this, Kichimanes, a descendant of Karthmanes, took power into his own hands and set about at once to restore the fighting capacity of the Bulgarians. He separated all the Bulgarians from the nation and began to wage war against Echek Tamil, Ethiopia, Sudan. Daesh points out that the Kupchagi themselves called themselves Askari, Asker, i.e., Bulgarian people, but the Arabs took this word to mean warrior, for all Bulgarians were warriors. At last the fighting power of the Bulgarians was restored, and the Egisazi defeated Echek Tamil by blows from land and sea in unison. In memory of this, that sea which washed over Mamel from the east was called Kizil Bulgar, Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Then the Bulgars of Manas defeated the allies of the Echek Tamils, the Libyans, today's Libyans, and living west of Mamel too. The Bulgarians came to Kapdag and Mamel under the green banner of Agadir. And at Hanak the flag of the Bulgarians became the Avar, red flag. The ruler after Kichimanes, his son Maji says Tarjais III made a voyage across the sea of Kizil Bulgar and Kogol, Indian Ocean, and subdued a large island called by them Sarai Island, Ceylon, i.e., the beautiful island, or the South Island, and along the way, Maji helped the islet emperors in their war against the Agadir emperor Balagaj or Baranagaj. Daesh stresses that only the wars of the Bulgarians with the Roman Empire, and with the Tatars, Mongols, can be compared with this war in history. When Balagaj returned to Agadir, Maji fought with his son Lujan. The Alp Lektiu was at first an ally of Islet and Mamel, and somehow managed to defeat and capture Lujan. However, seeing that Lujan was noble, and also with one eye, as he was, Lekia showed sympathy for him, returned Atriac, Troy, to him, and took to helping him. When Maji began to reproach Lektiu with violating the Treaty of Alliance, he replied, "I have learned from Timat, the Alpbaika of prophecy, that if I conquer Atriac and Lektiu, I shall lose my last eye, and if you conquer them, you shall lose Mamel." Maji laughed at this prediction and conquered Atriac. That is why he was called Suzatriac. In this conquest, Lujan died fighting in the ranks of the common soldiers. Taking advantage of the involvement of most of the Bulgarians in the war with Lujan, the Echek Tamils drove the Avars out of Mamel, and for them Avar became Cair, the lost city, Cairo. Maji says Atriac marched against Mamel, but the sea spilled and blocked his way. Maji realized that he had angered Chulman, whose daughter Jilanchek Lujan was married to, and returned to Atriac. The emperor of Ilith demanded that Maji return Atriac to Ilith, but he refused, explaining his refusal thus, "By conquering Atriac for you, I have lost my own empire, and now you want to take from me the last of what is left by offering me nothing equal to it." Then the emperor of Ilith, in alliance with Lektiu and Turdan the son of Lujan, made war against Maji and banished him to Bairak, Trachea. The emperor of Agadir tried to drive him away, and from there, and the enraged Maji Tarjais attacked Agadir or Midjar and subdued the whole of As-Sip, Scythia. The Bulgarians of Askip called the Egisaz Chimers, because they came from the district of Chimer or Kylo, Cilicia. At first, the Bulgarians expelled from Mamel held out in Bali-Stan, which they also began to call Kamkan in honor of Abar-Kam. But later, under the blows of the Mamelites, they were forced to retreat to the district of Gael, Galilee, on the border of Banek, Phoenicia, and Jur, Syria. A considerable number of the Mamluk slaves, who had fled from Mamel with them, one day treacherously passed over to the Mamluk side, and the Avars fled from Gael to the district of Symer. He separated all the Bulgarians from the nation and began to wage war against Echek Tamil, Ethiopia, Sudan. Of the Jehudim Jews, headed by the Midjahites, demagogues, Pharisees, the Leboites 1, Laboit spit, trash, filth. And in the north the Exosites took possession of a part of the rich Bulaim, Lydia, and founded there 2 cities in honor of their leaders, the sons of Sus Atriac II, Mamel, Miletus, and Karnal, Curia. On several occasions, the Bulgars succeeded in regaining Kamkan, but the Mamels again conquered it. Losing patience, Suzatriac departed northward, leaving in Chimer and Bulaim a small part of the Avars. When he conquered Askep, his dynasty was called the Sumerian, and in time the first Sumerian, for the dynasty of Katrag was called the second Sumerian. The first Sumerian dynasty ruled briefly. The very second emperor of Askep of this dynasty, the son of Suzatriac, Asaric, was deposed by the dissatisfied with his rule Agadir Bulgars, and the struggle of the Agagirs against the Sumerians was headed by the noble San, who was a true rich man. When the Agagir, led by San, the son of Dalai, the grandson of Lujan, overthrew the emperor of Askep, the son of Magi Suzatriac, the last Avro-Bulgarian emperor of Mamel, Asparake fled to Sanjak and from here began raids against Echkagagir, Inner Agagir, Ukraine. It is said that Asparake, in an effort to annoy the Agagir Bulgars, gave the name Iski Bulgar or Boringay Bulgar, Old, Ancient Bulgar, to Sanjak, and the name Kara Bulgar, Western, Great or Black Bulgar, to Echkagagir, to show the great antiquity of his dominions. San did not give up and repulsed Asparake's attacks one after another. In order to defeat him, Asparake was forced to employ in his service one of the descendants of the son of Arslan, the king of San Bertas, one of Bulgar or Bulir, with his troop of 30 Egidi, though he had once expelled his father Barsal Bushlich from Sanjagak to Agaj or Uris, i.e. Ruta Baz, Agarja, Uris, Abaz Abkhazia. Here, in the Abbasid town of Diosak or Ziyaji, Sukhumi, Bushlich's son, Bulir or Bulgar, came to light. He was named in honor of the Alpha Bulgar Bulir, Ziyaji, son of the Alpha Lakbir, a character from the epic Chulman Tolgau, and an Umayyad, Amazon. The Abbasids believed that Bulir was the Alpha Fidelity, duty, and sometimes, as he came out of the water, he killed with his fiery gaze the elderly traders. Children and human fruits is the wombs of mothers, from which future traders and pests were to grow. The city of Ziyaji itself was founded on such a spot, where once the Alpha Bulir Ziyaji came out of the sea and killed several future traders with his gaze. When at some time his gaze lost its power, for his gaze blazed only in part of the day, Ziyaji strangled with his hands several more would-be pests, and returned to the sea. Thanks to Bulir, there were no traders or pests among the Bulgarians. No one could stop him except his own descendants, against whom his powers did not work. Several times his descendants, at the request of various rulers, captured Bulir and chained him to rocks or trees, but after a while his spirit passed into a new body, and he resumed the destruction of the traders. Of this, as well as of the struggle of the Sandali and the son of Suzatriac, Asparake, of the accession at Ascoipa Bulgar, the son of Bushlich, of the descendants of Bulgar to Kankubar and Kukulian, is related by Suzber in the tale, Bulgar Ray, Song of Bulgar. Boyan Kuban did not include this tale in his poem, Chulman Tolgau, because he did not consider it very expressive. But because I consider this reasoning of his to be unfair, says Suzber, I therefore briefly transmit the contents of the Bulir Irage. To smooth over the former insults, Asparake married Bulgar to his daughter Banja and declared him his heir, for he had no sons. In the course of this war Asparake died, but Bulir still managed to defeat the Agagir of San. When Bulir's Bulgarians, in their majority the Barsili, Sari and Abatsi or Iberi, began to advance westward, San led all his Agagir Bulgarians into the Imen, Poland, district. In memory of the San, Ingulets, river in Kara, Bulgaria, on which he was born and loved to live, San renamed the Imen River in his new district of San, a tributary of the Vistula. The Tula River in the same district he named Bista, the name of the Alpa Chutman, hence Vistula, in honor of his father-in-law, the Alpa Chulman. By Chulman's daughter Sen had a daughter Jalda, of whom we shall speak further on. Sen also had a son Tamir, in honor of whom he named his capital Tamir. Later Tamir ordered that this city be named in memory of his father, Sandomir in Poland. Sen escaped from Kara-Bulgar, Ukraine, not because he was afraid of Bulir, but because he found out about his abilities to enchant and transform into various animals. He realized that fighting openly with a sorcerer was useless. Bulir's magical abilities were passed down from his mother, the daughter of the Alpha Bulir, in whose honor he was named. For these abilities, Bulir was called Targetai, i.e., heavenly man. And now by the words Hadai, Kaitai, or Hut, they call the respected people, the householders, and the holy people. In order to avoid unnecessary bloodshed and fratricidal warfare, before a decisive battle Bulir did use his abilities. First he turned into a bird, then into a fish, then into a harmelin, ferret, sneaking into the camp of the Agager and damaging all their weapons. Then, transformed into a snake, he would return. When he arrived in Kara-Bulgar and saw that the country was deserted, Bulir wept with bitterness and, through messengers, offered San to return with his people. But the proud Sen preferred to remain in Imen, surrounded by impenetrable forests. Then Bulgar Bulir Targetai, becoming 859 years before the Burmese War, i.e., in 1512 BC, the new emperor of Askip III, settled in Kara-Bulgar his Bulgars and Aryanokas, Lithuanians and Lotties, and forbade anyone to attack Imen. One Sen's daughter, Jalda, decided to visit her birthplace, Jalda, Crimea, from where she was taken to Imen in her youth. She loved to swim, and, like all the daughters and granddaughters of the Alpha Chulman, could turn into snakes, frogs, and fish, and so turning into a fish, she swam to Jalda on the river Ineshdar, Dniester. And Bulgar Targetai had 3 sons, Kyle or Cow, nicknamed Dale, Lukatai, and Karbai or Arbai. At their father's suggestion, they cast lots as to who should rule what. The Luchina had Bal, right bank Dnieper, Karbai had Kar, left bank Dnieper, and Kul had Jalda. Kyle lived in Jalda, and once his horses were killed, and he went in search of them. And it was Jalda the bull that swam into Jalda and stole his horses, because she loved to ride horses. For a long time Cal wandered around Jalda and eventually found the kidnapper, but instead of getting angry with her, he fell in love with the San's lovely daughter. And she fell in love with Cal more than anything in her life. Their fathers showed the wisdom of true Bulgarians and gave permission for the wedding. At their wedding Bulir and San were reconciled to each other to the joy of all Bulgarians. Having reunited all the Bulgarian lands in Agager, Mek Eastern Europe, Bulir called the noble Burk Tamtikatai to him and asked, "Tell wise Karth, holy old man, elder, priest, what will happen if I openly call our Askip by our treasured Imam Bulgar, for I love that name very much. Your dynasty will reign for 500 years and be overthrown, and the name Bulgar will remain forever on earth." Tamtikatai replied, "And if I leave the former name, Askip, Scythia, or Agager?" inquired Jabgasar, emperor, Bulgar Bulir Targetai. "Your dynasty will reign forever on this land, and the treasured name Bulgar will be forgotten," the Askal sage muttered. And Bulir, without hesitation, commanded that Askip be called Bulgar, remarking, "There is nothing more important to me than the name Bulgar. May that name, and not some other, live forever on earth. Let not so much our overlords, but our whole people be called Bulgarians, and let for all Bulgarians on earth the welfare of the Bulgarian people become the most important thing. Further on, the saga teller Susber, who sang this story already under Iole Kachrag, Emperor Pa Bulgar at the beginning of the first millennium BC, tells about the son of Bushlai, Kildale, about his son Sajal, about his son Majal, about his son Kartkurbit, and all of them were emperors of Bulgar, as a skeep was then apparently called. Kartkurbit had a son Bulir, whom they also called Kardat or Kurdat, as he was in his youth governor of Kar. Hardat had his Herdit, and a daughter Alana. This daughter became the wife of Kuban, son of Hingel, Aya of the Alpha Chulman. Once from a divination Kurdat came to know that the son of his daughter Alana would kill him, so he plotted to kill all 3 sons of Alana. Realizing that Kuban might prevent him, Herdit decided to kill Kuban first. Kurdat was driven to such cruelty by the fact that he was the son of an Imogen, evil Albaika, and dreamed of delivering a skeep into the power of the Kaljavis, impure. The steppe where Kuban lived was drought-stricken, and he drove his flock to the forest glade whose grass the emperor had previously allowed him to use. But this time Herdit purposely forbade Kuban to graze the animals of Yakti Alan, clear meadow, declaring it sacred. When the indignant Kuban began to mow the grass here of his own accord, the emperor's engines tore him to pieces and ate him. Kurdat then ordered the sons of Alana and Kuban, his grandsons, to be drowned, but Chulman managed to save one of them, Merjat, whom they also called simply Mir. Because Mir loved to play the dangur, stringed instrument, he was also called Mirdangur. When Mir grew up, he led the people. He was troubled by the Imagines, and in a fierce fight with the Kaljavis killed his grandfather Kurdat Bulir. The people placed Mirdungar on the throne of Bulgat, but Merjat proved to be an inept ruler, and the people resolved to remove him from power. Mir had no sons, and the people of Bulgat handed over power to Nukrat, a descendant of Tamir, who was married to one of Mir Janger's daughters. Merjat left the palace and became a wandering Kelber, priest, and musician-singer. Under Nukrath, Bulgar's situation improved slightly, but under the next emperor, Nukrath's son, Balta, it worsened again. Therefore the peoples took the power away from Balta and handed it over to Arat, whose father was Nerit, and grandfather was Erdat, son of Harat Bulir. Arat's son was Surit, his son was Burit, his son was Alat, his son was Tamash, his son was Darish, his son was Alate, and all of them were emperors of Bulgar. Aliab had 2 sons, Caleb and Bulir Imen. When Caleb became emperor, Imen, out of anger, seceded to his district of Imen and refused to obey Bulgar. Since that time, the inhabitants of this district are named according to Bulir Imen by Bulir, Protopolyax. Caleb's son was Kurbit, who had a son Cancubar and a daughter Teketir. As Teketir, they called the chaste Archimathis, Albaika, who, fearing the advances of men, hid herself in a goatskin. Teketir means goatskin. After Cancubar got possession of the district of Odiesh, or Utyash, the inner flood of the Prut and the Dniester, they began to call it Utyash. Cancubar's wife was the beautiful Misha, who bore him the son Kulak, the last emperor of the Bulir Bulgar dynasty Targetai. Teketir became the wife of Sualtan, who all his life dreamed of finding and searching for the Golden River, for which he received the nickname Sualtan, Su, water, river, Altan, gold. The son of Teketir and Sualtan was the hero Sudan, warrior glory, or Auden, also, warrior glory, the peer of Kulak. The evil Kulak, though in childhood he often played with Sudan, hated him and harmed him in every way. Once, when they were near the forge of the Alpha Kursakulian, guarded by Kursa's dog, Kulak suggested to Sudan that she throw a pebble at the dog, for Auden was an accurate stone thrower. This pebble, which Kulak gave to Sudan, was called by Kulak for murder. Auden, unaware of this, threw threw the pebble at the dog and killed it on the spot. Kulak immediately escaped, and Sudan was captured by Kursa. Hirsa was one-eyed, and the puppy was his only friend. But Hirsa did not give in to his blind rage and listened to Sudan's excuse. The boy claimed that he threw a small pebble at the dog which could not kill the dog. Kursa took that pebble at his hand and immediately understood everything, although Sudan did not issue a kulak. Hirsa let go of Sudan, but noted that he had killed his only companion. The boy would have walked away in a huff, but when he looked around, he saw Hirsa crying. He felt sorry for the Alpha, and when he returned to him, he said to him, "Don't cry, great Alpha, now I will be your dog." One he stayed with Hirsa and began to help him, which is why the peoples called Sudan Kukulyang. Ku, dog, Kulyang, Hirsa's name, i.e., Hirsa's dog. And there they called Kursa Kulyan, because his forge was located at the Kulyan settlement. Kukulyan made friends with Kursa, and he taught him how to use the weapon and fight. Even in his childhood, Kukulyan fell in love with the maiden Oimer one from the settlement of Kulyan. Once Kukulyan asked her what was the thing she hated most, and she told him, "War, because when my father leaves home, my mother cries in fear for him. If I could have met Gulaim, the Albaika of war, I would have killed her." And Gulaim was dozing beside them in the grass, turned into a little snake. When she heard the girl's words, she was offended. When she turned into a huge barrage, snake-like dragon, Gulaim asked the people of Kulyan to hand Oimer over to her, promising to leave them alone afterwards. Oimer's parents immediately tied up the daughter and left her in the field for Gulim. But Gulim, though she loved war and harshness, was not cruel. In the beginning, Gulim, daughter of Alpa by Baris, was known by the name Samar. But after the death of her husband Shambat, a character from Chulman Tolgau, she became so upset that she became an Albaika of war under the name Gulaim. With the word Gulaim, the brave Bulgarian Bahadirs called the bloody wounds. Gulaim literally means pink mole. Samar only wanted to frighten the girl, but when she started towards her, Kukulyan jumped in her way and declared that he would not betray his companion to her. Overwhelmed and delighted by his courage, Gulaim agreed to let Oimer go if he would swear to love only her. When Gulim bared her breast to Kukulyan, he uttered the oath of love. "I swear to love only you, and not to look at the breasts of other women." Thereafter, Susvar relates how the Emperor Kankubar arranged a race of men and horses to relieve the birth pangs of his wife Misha, the punishment of Umi, the attack of Bulgar on the three sons of Dar, Bar, Var, and Map, and their death in battle was Kukulyan too. Let us return to the description of Islet, where after Jargon his son Hekshan ruled briefly, from whom his power was taken by Jargon's other son, Maher, 1,300 years before the Berda War, i.e. in 1953 BC. Maher, after marrying his daughter Korka to Avarkam, treated him cruelly, and Avarkam fled from him to Ertigil, Middle Thrace. As mentioned above, Avar had already left his son Sibash to rule over Moscut and Kapdag, and the Thracians in Ertigil elected Avar Rajal as their king, and he ruled them under the names of Agilaz and Chalmixes. Mentor of Islet after Elam Kaddish became his son Bel Baelish I, after him his son Kaddish, after him his son Baelish, his son Saresh, his son Baraj Varesh, his son Bagash, his son Sulish, his son Belkanesh, his son Atiesh, his son Urus Master, who had two famous sons Agil and Boyantulgi. Boyantulgi married Nene, the daughter of the Mamluk B. Mamin. Mamin's son was Delim, his son Ejim. After Urus Master, the mentor of Islet was Boyantulgi's son, Ejim Tungi, after him Ejim Tungi's brother, Saran. Saran was married to the beauty Sarbai, who had legendary origins. From the relationship of the Alpa of the Psalms Arabia and Karatimat was born the first Sarbai, the elder friend of the Alpha Kubar. Og Kubar, the first Sarbai, gave birth to the second Sarbai, who became the wife of the Alpha Jomrik. Jomrik Sarbi the second gave birth to Sarbi the third, who became the wife of Saran. After Saran, the mentor of Eilat, was Shurakan. After him his son Arun, also called Buran Ioleg, and Arun Buran. After him his son Ejim, then Arun's other son Mogez, then Ejim's son Juchi or Juchim. After him his son Agil Jaim. After him his son Bilan, nicknamed Metalai, 1,000 troops, married to Atash, the daughter of the king of Jilki II, Nurgilish. Bilam had two prominent sons, Jaram and Talai. Jaram's son was Akadalai, his son Jamil. After Bilam Metalai, the mentor of Eilat, was his son Talai. After him his son Balabaz. After him his son Adrajak. After him his nephew Egil. In order to control Zara, his brother Kidon's wife, Atriac killed Kidon. Zara ran away from home and married the Jurassic Syrian Bey Hijasa Ijam Eratit, a follower of the teachings of Avarkam. Kidon's son Egil killed Atriac himself and took power. However, Atriac's son Agamemnon managed to escape from the city of Atriac Bulgar, Troy, to the city of Bicon, Mycenae, and after some time besieged Atriac. After a decade-long war, he captured the city of Atriac, killed Egil, the ruler, in Burkam at the same time, and became the mentor of Eilat III. Agamemnon's son was Urus. His son was Kalja Navar, who founded the Beylik Navar, Proto-Armenian. His son was Dair. His son was Magyar. His son was Savar. His son was Savar. His son was Sabarjik. His son was Burjik. Egil's daughter, who had been raped by Agamemnon, killed him, and Ilitha's Minta became Jamil Bujim or Boyan Bujim. After Bujim, his son Bulam became the mentor of Eilat, followed by his son Jalish, followed by his son Yanish, followed by his son Baim, followed by his son Kansjar, who married Kashandar, the daughter of Savar, the son of Magyar. Kandjar had two prominent sons, Banjar, one of whose wives was Aini, and Sardik, who married Uberka. Banjar, who became the mentor of Eilat after Kandjar, had three famous sons, Yalad Katrag, Yalash, and Udig. Banjar's rule after his death was succeeded by Katrag. Udig married his stepmother Aini against Katrag's wishes, fled from his wrath to Sanjak, where he became king of Karasanjak. From that time, Karasanjak also began to be called Udig. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more amazing historical insights. Want to support my work? Join me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, or Ko-Fi to help keep these stories coming. Until next time, keep exploring the past. It shapes our future.